The day I decided to divorce, I unexpectedly awakened the ability to read minds. I always thought my wife, who had been indifferent to me, must be eager for the divorce. To my surprise, I heard her inner voice crying, "What should I do? My husband doesn't want me anymore." "But I don't want a divorce, boo-hoo." I was dumbfounded. But in the next second, when I blinked, I found myself back in the moment during our sophomore year when I confessed my love to her. She, the campus queen, rejected me in public. People around mocked me with cold sarcasm, but I distinctly heard the joyful voice in her heart. She thought, "I'm so happy Oscar finally confessed to me. Now I must make him cry and ensure he only ever loves me." Furious, I tore up the love letter I had planned to give her right in front of her and threw it into the trash can without a second thought. "Let's get a divorce." Sitting at the dining table, I said this to Ruby, who was cooking. She merely pressed her lips together and coolly responded, "Can you not disturb me while I'm frying?" I gave a bitter smile. Maybe to Ruby, every extra word I said to her felt annoying. It wasn't until I handed her the divorce papers already prepared that she froze. "If there's no issue, just sign it," I said. She stared intensely at the 4 bold words on the cover, her fingers trembling as she clutched the papers. I thought to myself she must be thrilled. After all, for 4 years in college and 5 years of marriage, I've clung to her like a piece of stubborn gum, chasing her relentlessly. If it hadn't been for my constant persistence, she would never have agreed to marry me. Ruby's disdain for me had long seeped into her bones. In these 5 years, I've learned the bitter truth that forcing love brings no sweetness. I also came to terms with a hard reality. Ruby doesn't like me. No matter how hard I try, she never will. So I figured it was time to wake up from this self-deceptive dream. Ruby's lips parted slightly, and just as I thought she was about to agree, I suddenly heard sobbing in my ear. A voice cried out, "My husband doesn't want me anymore. What should I do? What should I do? Did I do something to upset him recently? It doesn't seem like I did. Then what is it? Boo-hoo." I was utterly bewildered. I stared wide-eyed in shock. That voice was Ruby's. But she had always been so cold and distant, never addressing me so intimately. After we got married, no matter how proactive I was, she always pushed me away in disgust, yelling at me to stay away and never touch her. How could she possibly care this much about my feelings? It must be an illusion. It had to be a hallucination. But the next moment, the voice exploded again. Maybe I should pretend to choke on the food and let my dear husband take me to the hospital to buy some time. But what would I do after we get to the hospital, boo-hoo? Maybe I should break my leg instead. They say it takes 100 days to recover from a bone injury. I can delay things as long as possible. At this point, I was completely floored, because I was sure Ruby hadn't said a word. So what I was hearing were her inner thoughts. It was like she had turned into a completely different person. I hesitated, about to say something, but then everything went black. "If it's a love letter, forget it. I won't accept it." The sweet but emotionless voice of a girl rang in my ears. I opened my eyes, looking at the familiar campus, and was shocked to realize I had returned to my sophomore year. At this moment, I was holding a love letter in my hand. 19-year-old Ruby stood in front of me. She raised her eyes, filled with arrogance and disdain, as if saying, "What a lowly simp, doesn't even look in the mirror to see if he's worthy of confessing to the campus queen." I suddenly remembered this was the day I had mustered the courage to confess my love for Ruby after secretly admiring her for 2 years. She asked, puzzled, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Her beautiful eyebrows arched slightly, but then her inner voice rang out again, "I'm so happy he finally confessed to me. Just wait, I'll make him cry." "Humph, hurry up and say you like me. Come on, what are you waiting for? I can't wait to see how heartbroken he'll be when I reject him." Weird, why isn't he saying anything? A bold thought flashed through my mind, and I suddenly exploded with anger. Could it be that Ruby actually liked me too? Was she just pretending to be indifferent to me all these years? If that was true, then all the persistence and efforts I had made over the years must have made me look like a total fool in her eyes. Realizing this, I gritted my teeth and my fists clenched so tightly they made a cracking sound. Ruby noticed and kept a calm expression, but her inner voice began to panic. "Something's wrong. Why does he look a bit angry? Maybe I should say I need to test him to string him along and buy more time. What if he gets really mad and never comes after me again? What should I do then? She pouted as if making a difficult decision, then nervously reached out her hand toward me and said, "All right, I can accept your love letter, but that doesn't mean I'll accept your feelings. I need time to test you." Seeing her reluctant gaze, I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. I asked, "Who said this was a love letter for you?" Her eyes froze in confusion. In the next second, I tore the envelope in my hand to pieces. "Move aside, idiot," I said. "You're blocking my way to the trash can." I stepped past her and threw the shredded paper into the trash can behind her. The air fell silent. I heard Ruby's breath catch. Her inner voice said, "Why did he tear up the love letter meant for me?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her eyes welling up with tears, about to overflow with sadness. I couldn't be bothered to say anything more. I averted my gaze and walked away from her without looking back. In the school cafeteria, I sat holding my chopsticks, lost in thought for a long time, trying to process the fact that I had returned to campus and was now 8 years younger. From Ruby's reaction, it seemed like only I had come back. A shout broke through my thoughts. "Oscar, look! There's a picture on the confession wall." My roommate sitting across from me handed me his phone. I had no idea who had taken this candid shot. Ruby's face was filled with anxiety. The cooler she had been when rejecting me earlier, the more desperately she was now rummaging through the trash can. The comments section was exploding. Everyone was speculating about what could be so important that the campus queen would throw away her image like that. But I only noticed one of the torn pieces in one of the photos and sneered. Where was all this urgency earlier? David stared at the phone in amazement, clicking his tongue. Whatever it was, it must have been really important to make Ruby care this much. After all, she's pretty, has a great body, and comes from a wealthy family. People like her start life at a finish line we ordinary people could never reach. Whatever caught her eye and made her care so much must be something truly special. I thought about all the years I had spent by Ruby's side. Other than my genuine feelings, I had nothing else of value to offer. But alas, genuine feelings are the least valuable thing of all. I laughed bitterly. Important or not, once it's in the trash, it's just trash. A voice suddenly interrupted me. "That's not true." A young girl's clear voice hurriedly refuted me, and my wrist was grabbed. I looked up instinctively and locked eyes with a pair of round almond-shaped eyes. In that fleeting moment, her gaze trembled and she quickly let go of my hand. Her inner voice said, "No, I can't touch him after digging through the trash." But I washed my hands so many times. What if he thinks I'm dirty? I couldn't help but feel exasperated. "Do you need something?" Ruby stared at me, her eyes once again turning red at the edges. She said, "It's not trash," I asked. "What?" She mumbled something, but I couldn't make out her words. Then she took out the love letter, now covered in tape. She said, "Look, I put it back together." After saying that, she looked at me with hopeful eyes. I frowned. The letter had been torn into tiny pieces, and putting it back together couldn't have been easy. However, I coldly replied, not holding back, "The letter I wrote for my dog. Why do you like it so much?" Ruby's expression froze, and the next second she whispered, "I'm a dog." I was speechless. Soon as I returned to the dormitory, David couldn't wait to ask, "Seriously, Oscar, what's going on between you and Ruby? You tore up the love letter you gave her." She dug it out of the trash and pieced it back together. "Does she like you too?" "What the heck? You're something else, man. What kind of magic did you use to make the campus queen fall for you like that? Tell me everything." He looked like he had just discovered some earth-shattering secret, his eyes gleaming with excitement. But as he kept laughing, he noticed my lack of reaction and was stunned. He reached out to feel my forehead, mumbling to himself, "What's going on? You don't have a fever, so why aren't you happy?" I tilted my head, swatting his hand away. "I'm not sick." David was shocked by my calmness. From the first day of school, from the first time I laid eyes on Ruby, I had been head over heels for her. At first it was my own secret, until David noticed the way I acted around Ruby, how my whole demeanor changed every time I ran into her, and he figured it out. From his perspective, This was great news. The person I secretly loved actually liked me back. A perfect match. But from my perspective, it felt like a cruel joke. For 9 years, I had poured my heart out to her, yet it never seemed to matter. Now knowing she liked me all along, it was a complete farce. No wonder I couldn't be happy about it. So I said, I was too much of a simp before. Now I just don't want to keep being one. David was shocked again. I thought he'd keep pressing me for answers. After all, I used to be so obsessed with Ruby. Now suddenly I didn't care. It had to sound strange to him. But instead he unexpectedly pulled 2 discount coupons for a nightclub out of his pocket. There's an event this Saturday. Spend $200 and get 15 off plus 2 free beers. You in? I was speechless. He grinned, throwing an arm around my shoulders. Who cares about troubles and heartache? A few drinks and you'll forget it all. I swear it works, trust me. I couldn't help but laugh. I took the coupons from David and decided to go with him without hesitation to the nightclub. As soon as I pushed open the door, booming music hit me in the face. The lights constantly shifted and flickered around me, bodies moving rhythmically in the center of the dance floor, and the air was thick with indulgence and ambiguity. Ruby loved places like this. Every time she would dress up provocatively before heading out, then blatantly tell me she was going to a nightclub. It always made me grit my teeth in anger, and I'd end up wrapping layer after layer of clothes around her. She would glare at me, calling me petty and uptight, before storming off to bed frustrated. Once, to make her feel the same, I called up a few of my buddies and decided to hit the club myself. But halfway there she intercepted me, furious, threatening divorce if I didn't go home immediately. I was speechless. Such blatant double standards. Damn it! As I recalled the past, I grew angrier. With a loud thud, I slammed the glass onto the table, feeling a bit dizzy. Suddenly, a sweet voice drifted into my ear. Hey handsome, just got out of a breakup. I turned toward the voice, its owner now sitting beside me. Forget about those trashy girls. A guy as good-looking as you deserves way better. She rested her chin in her hand, smiling at me softly. She was the definition of sweet. Just a glance was enough to stir the heart. Her lips shimmered with a glossy jelly lip gloss, and her smile carried a flirtatious sweetness. David, sitting nearby, elbowed me repeatedly and nodded toward her, grinning. This one's good, this one's good. Way better than that ice-cold Ruby. What's that saying? Give up on one crooked tree and you've got a whole forest. Just as I was about to respond, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Ruby, with a cold expression, was striding angrily toward me. I froze. Wait. In an instant, my drunkenness started to fade. She stopped right in front of me, and the temperature around us seemed to drop. Ruby glared at me, and the girl beside me bolted in fear. I was about to tell her she forgot her drink, but she had already disappeared. Ruby said, "What, liking what you see?" For once Ruby smiled at me. But the more I looked at that smile, the more ominous it seemed, like the calm before a storm. She gripped the hem of her skirt, biting her lip as she said, "Still looking? Do you really like looking that much? Want me to go get her for you before she gets too far?" I was speechless. No need to trouble yourself. For the first time, seeing her this angry made me scratch my head awkwardly. The next second David groaned dramatically, "Oh man, I think I'm drunk." And then he dramatically collapsed onto the table, trying to look cool. I was speechless. Ruby looked at David and said, "I've contacted your sister to pick you up. She's already outside." No sooner had she finished speaking than David popped up from the table, shouting, "Got it! Thanks a lot. Catch you later." I was speechless. I must have gone crazy. Before I knew it, Ruby grabbed my earlobe and yanked. It hurt. "You come with me." She dragged me by the ear, marching outside. "Let go. What do you think you're doing?" I tried to break free, but she suddenly turned and bit down hard on my lips. "Don't move." I was completely baffled, and the faint scent of her perfume lingered on my lips. Ruby dragged me through the crowd, pulling me along as we passed through the throngs of people. Looking at her small figure leading the way, I felt a sudden moment of déjà vu, overlapping with the cold, distant version of her who used to walk away from me without a second thought. By the time we reached the bar's entrance, She pushed me into the passenger seat. Her small figure stood right in front of me, her almond-shaped eyes glaring angrily. The next second she leaned in, and instinctively, I leaned back, wary. Seeing me avoid her only made her angrier. "Oscar, you've really learned some tricks, haven't you? You used to promise me you'd never drink or smoke, and now you've had several drinks and learned to flirt with other girls too, huh?" In the past. My eyes widened in shock. Could the Ruby standing in front of me also be the Ruby from 8 years in the future? I snapped. "Who do you think you are? What I drink, who I talk to, has nothing to do with you." Her face flushed as she shouted, "You can't talk to anyone else. You just can't. I won't allow it." I was speechless. I was about to open the door and leave, but suddenly she slammed her foot on the gas. I couldn't wrestle the steering wheel from her, and jumping out of the car wasn't an option. I couldn't escape, nor could I leave. Since there was no way out, I might as well see what she was up to. She drove us all the way to the apartment we had rented after we first got together. As soon as we entered, the lights weren't even on before she threw herself into my arms. "Do you really not like me anymore?" Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of pleading in it. The soft moonlight shining through the windows cast a shadow of sadness on her face. I found it laughable. She was the one who wronged me, so why did she look like the one who was hurt? I took a deep breath, chuckling coldly. "Yes, I stopped liking you a long time ago." But Ruby only tightened her grip on my wrist, pressing me further. "Then who do you like?" "That girl from earlier." "That's right." I lowered my head and looked her in the eye. "Not just her. I like any girl with a nice figure." Suddenly she stood on her tiptoes and kissed me hard on the lips. I pushed her away. She bit her lip in frustration, her eyes brimming with tears that were just on the verge of falling. "I don't believe you. You're lying to me." I turned away, unwilling to look at her. "Don't think that this will make me feel sorry for you." I sighed softly and said, "Ruby, this trick doesn't work on me anymore." The moment those words left my mouth, her tears began to fall one after another. I stayed silent, but the more I stayed quiet, the harder she cried. She tugged at my sleeve, cautiously looking at me. "Are you really mad? You can scold me however you want, just don't ignore me, don't be so cold." Cold. I thought about how I had showered her with care and affection for years. She had enjoyed all the attention I gave her, all the while treating me like a fool, playing me for laughs. Now that I didn't want to deal with her anymore, she was the one coming to me. What a strange person. Seeing that I remained silent, she lowered her gaze in disappointment, almost leaning into me. "Oscar, talk to me, please. I really know I was wrong." She placed my hands on her cheeks, gently rubbing against them, pleading with me sweetly. But all I felt was disgust, and I quickly pulled my hands away. I didn't want to touch her for even another second. My expression turned cold as I mockingly said, "A broken mirror can't be pieced back together, just like that love letter you tore up. Once it's broken, it's broken. No matter how much you try to put it back together, it'll never be the same as it was. Delayed affection is more worthless than grass." But then she pulled a pristine love letter out of her pocket, handing it to me with an even more cautious gaze. "I wrote a new one. See, this one is intact." I was so furious I was at a loss for words. In fact, I almost laughed. I asked, "Do you think this is funny? Do you think I can't live without you? Ruby, do you enjoy seeing me grovel? Is that why you're not used to no one groveling at your feet anymore? What do you take me for?" There was a flash of panic in Ruby's eyes. "I didn't mean that. Didn't mean that." I cut her off, interrupting her. "You rejected me on the surface but kept stringing me along in your heart, wanting to see me in pain after I got rejected. What didn't you mean? Are you some kind of sadist?" She froze. My smile only grew colder as I watched her face after her lies were exposed. But Ruby's expression only grew more pitiful as she softly said, "But isn't that what loving someone is like? Isn't it supposed to hurt? Isn't it supposed to be painful?" I was utterly dumbfounded. Confused, I didn't understand what she was trying to say. Seeing my expression, she bit her lip but didn't explain further. Instead, she turned and switched on the lights in the living room, pulling me into another room. "Wait a second," she said. She stepped onto a stool and reached for a thick photo album from the highest shelf of the bookcase. Dusting it off, she opened it, unlocking memories that had been buried for a long time. When you love someone, you naturally want to know everything about them. But in the 9 years I had known Ruby, she had never mentioned anything about her parents. From dating to marriage, I hadn't even met them. Whenever I tried to find out, I hit a dead end. Ruby never spoke of them, and after so many failed attempts, I eventually gave up. Now the mystery that had plagued me for years was finally going to be answered. "This is my mother." She pointed to the woman in the photo. The background was a park, and she was holding Ruby, who couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old at the time. She was beautiful, elegant, and poised. Her smile was warm and soft, her eyes full of light. But as we flipped through more photos, her smile faded, and the light in her eyes gradually disappeared. Ruby then pointed to a blank spot in another photo, saying, "And here is my father." If I had to guess, this was meant to be a family photo, but the figure had been cut out with scissors, leaving the image shredded. Many of the other photos had similar cuts, some even showing signs of being burned. It was shocking to look at. My mother loved my father very much, but he always made her cry. At that time, Ruby was too young to understand anything, just learning to speak. But even at that age, she could sense her mother's sadness. Curious, she asked why her mother was always crying. Her mother would hold her and cry even harder, answering that it was because she loved her father too much. Loving someone can bring happy tears, but it can also bring tears of pain. In the end, her mother's tears couldn't keep him, and they chose to part ways. They both went on to build new lives, forming new families. Ruby, however, became the obstacle and blemish between them. They gave her plenty of money but never gave her any love again. In the beginning, she had been their cherished baby girl, their one and only princess. Some people spend their entire lives trying to heal from childhood wounds. Ruby seemed accustomed to living alone, independent, but deep down, she always longed for love. Yet while she craved love, she never believed she deserved it. So she would test again and again whether someone would leave her, pushing away those who loved her to find some sense of security. "You once told me that the moment you saw me on the first day of school, you fell for me." As she said this, she looked up at me, her gaze flickering. "But what you didn't know is that in that same moment, I fell for you too." One side of the bookshelf slowly opened, revealing something that left me in utter shock. It was a massive butterfly wall. Just one glance was enough to leave a powerful impression. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was made up of countless photos. I walked closer, and to my surprise, I saw that I appeared in almost every single one. "That's from the first time we met. I secretly took it while you weren't looking." Ruby stood next to me, pointing to the photo at the very top. Memories came flooding back. It was from the first day of school. I had 8 bags of luggage strapped to me along with 2 large 28-inch suitcases, struggling to drag everything along. But actually, only one of the suitcases was mine. The rest belonged to David. He had dashed off to the bathroom, unable to wait even a second longer, and left me with all his luggage. When I saw how much he had brought, I was dumbfounded. It wasn't just luggage, it was like he had moved his whole house. Even now, thinking back, I still felt like I had been completely played by him. "I saw you by accident, and I thought you were amazing, so confident, so kind, and willing to help a friend. No matter how tough or tiring it was, you didn't complain." Ruby's lips curved into a smile as if lost in a warm memory. Meanwhile, I was already picturing myself punching David again. She continued, "I actually walked over to ask if you needed any help." Confused, I asked, "And then?" Because I had no memory of this at all. I didn't know that Ruby had noticed me long before I ever noticed her. She said, "You had so much luggage on your shoulders, you didn't see me, and one of the suitcases rolled over and hit my foot." Ruby paused for a moment before continuing, "Then you just pushed it forward, rolling right over me." I was speechless. Now that she mentioned it, I vaguely remembered something like that. At the time, I thought the suitcase had gotten stuck on a rock or something, and I was too lazy to move it, so I just pushed it forward. Turns out I had rolled right over her foot. Feeling embarrassed, I quickly apologized. "I'm so sorry, I didn't notice at the time," she continued. "And this one?" Ruby pointed to the photo beside it. In the photo, I was standing alone holding 3 ice creams. She said, "At first I thought you were bringing them for your friends, but I followed you the whole way and watched you eat them all by yourself." As she spoke, a faint hint of envy appeared in Ruby's eyes, and she softly remarked, "What an appetite you had! You really could eat." I was speechless. No, seriously, I put my hand to my forehead, feeling completely exasperated. Other girls are attracted to guys for their masculine charm, but for her, everything seemed so different. She continued, "And this one," I interrupted. "All right, that's enough. Stop. Please, that's enough. Any more and I might actually want to crawl into a hole and disappear." She was digging up every embarrassing thing about me. She added, "Besides, I was the one who confessed to you first." Hearing this, my brain completely froze. I asked, "When was that?" I racked my brain, but I had no memory of it. Seeing my confused look, Ruby pulled out her phone and opened her social media feed. The day before I gave her my love letter, she had posted a picture with the caption, "Under the same sky." I frowned and asked, "So what does that mean?" She replied earnestly, "It was taken by the research building at the time you were just finishing class. If you looked up, you would have seen the same sky I was looking at. The meaning is we were under the same sky. Doesn't that sound like a beautiful confession?" Ruby looked at me with anticipation, like a child waiting to be praised. Once again, I was speechless. "Hold on, little girl. There's no way anyone could have figured that out without a microscope. I couldn't understand it at all." She went on, "But at the time, you even liked my post. I thought you understood." I twitched my mouth. I'd never been this at a loss for words in my life. She said, "And I wasn't being cold to you." Ruby swallowed the dryness in her throat and patiently explained to me, "I know everything about you, your likes, your dislikes," she said. "And many of your habits." I asked, "Like what?" She replied, "Like how you smile when you're happy and feel sad when you're not, how you get hungry and want to eat, and how you get thirsty and want to drink water." I was silent for a moment. I said, "Give me something a little deeper than basic human biology." She muttered on about many things, like the dishes I ate and the soup I drank. She used to say she didn't care what I liked and would cook whatever she wanted, but everything she made was exactly what I loved. At the time, I thought it was odd how similar our tastes were. I asked, "Then why didn't you ever say anything?" She knew everything about me, and I was eager to learn everything about her. But she had locked herself away, never giving me the chance. I spent 9 years trying, and I couldn't even crack the door open a little. It felt awful. Back then, I even thought she looked down on me or had someone else in her heart, which was why she treated me so coldly. Ruby lowered her eyes, looking dejected, and said, "Because I wanted to show you my best side. I was afraid that the more you got to know me, the more disappointed you would be. If that happened, you wouldn't like me anymore." She was terrified that if I truly got to know her, I'd be disappointed, that I'd abandon her once again. She always thought it was her fault, that she wasn't good enough, which is why her parents so easily cast her aside. If only she had been an outstanding, exceptional child. If only she could have made them proud. Maybe then they would have cared about her a little more. I urgently said, "But that was their problem. You did nothing wrong. You don't have to do anything to please them, and you definitely shouldn't blame yourself." Her eyes were misty with unshed tears. She said, "Meeting you was like a withered tree encountering the arrival of spring. And once someone has been illuminated by light, how could they ever willingly return to the dark abyss?" I cupped her face in my hands, looking into her eyes, and spoke each word slowly. "But when you truly love someone, you love everything about them. You love their brightness, and you also love their fragility. If you only love what's on the surface, that's not love, it's just a fleeting moment of excitement." Ruby smiled faintly, with a hint of sorrow, and said, "It's a pity I realized it too late and learned too slowly. I made you unhappy for so long. Because it wasn't until later that I understood. When you love someone, you feel their pain, and you don't want them to have any negative feelings." She raised her hand, her fingertips gently brushing the lines on the butterfly wall. She had woven them all by hand, as if creating a cage meant to trap this butterfly. If she could, she would want me to stay with her forever. But if being close to her meant being close to sadness, she would rather cut these threads herself and let me go. Seemed like she wanted to trap me, but in truth, she had always been trapping herself. The night before I handed her the divorce papers, she made a wish on a falling star because she realized that I hadn't seemed happy all these years and she hadn't even noticed my love for her. She knew it was all her fault. So she wished on the star, asking if she could go back in time and give me another chance to choose, even if it meant losing me completely. "Oscar," she called softly, gazing at me with deep affection. She said, "I've told you everything about me. So do you still like me? Do you like this imperfect version of me?" My thoughts were a jumble. I did like her, that was true. After all, you can't just cut off years of feelings and say you don't care anymore. But everything we had been through, those moments, were also real. I was confused and took a deep breath, saying, "Sorry. I don't know." At least right now, I couldn't give her the answer she wanted. My response was probably what she expected. She smiled gently and said, "It's okay. Take your time. Time will give us the answer." At the very least, now that everything was out in the open, we had a new, better understanding of each other. When it came to our relationship, Ruby was no longer walking on eggshells. She had finally learned to express herself openly and confront her emotions and needs. She even started sharing the beautiful things she encountered in her life with me. But she had also grown more spoiled than before. One time on the field, she tripped and fell. Just a second before, she was telling her friends she wasn't hurt and it didn't hurt at all. But the moment she saw me, she immediately pouted and started whining, "It hurts so much, handsome. Can you help me up?" I was speechless. She never used to like sweets, but now when we go out, she'll buy 2 cups of milk tea, one for each of us. It reminded me of the time when Ruby and I first became a couple and went on our first date. I excitedly bought 2 taro bubble teas, thinking all girls liked sweet things. It was a new flavor, and it tasted great. I had waited in line for half an hour, eager to give it to her. But at the time, Ruby drank it with a frown the entire time and told me, "Next time if you buy this again, you can drink both yourself." I was baffled. Seeing her reaction, I couldn't tell if she hated the tea or hated me. I chalked it up to her being on a diet, trying to stay in shape. This time, Ruby finally explained, "It was just too sweet for me. I wasn't used to it." When she was young, she actually liked sweets, but her teeth got cavities, and she once had such unbearable pain that she was clutching half of her face. Nobody was there to take care of her. Her parents had divorced, leaving her alone in a big house with only a nanny to look after her. When the nanny left after work, Ruby didn't know what to do. In the end, the pain became so unbearable that she used the house phone to call an ambulance. She was so young at the time and absolutely terrified. Ever since then, she didn't dare eat sweets. Ruby clumsily explained, afraid I wouldn't understand, gesturing wildly. She said, "At the time, I saw how upset you looked, and I realized I must have said something wrong. But I didn't mean it the way you thought." I couldn't help but find it both childish and amusing. She tried even harder to explain herself. "Really, you have to believe me." I responded, all right, I believe you." After spending all this time together again, I could see that a lot of her contradictions weren't intentional. She would think one thing, but once the words left her mouth, they would somehow come out all wrong. It was truly bizarre. She added, "Actually, after I went home that day, I ordered another cup of the same milk tea." Slowly, she started to accept that eating sweets wasn't the painful experience it had been in her childhood. On the contrary, sweets could lift her mood. She started imitating my preferences, learning things that no one had ever taught her. Like a clumsy child, she was figuring things out step by watching others. I had spent 9 years teaching her how to love, and with my sincerity, I showed her that everyone deserves love. But to be loved, you first have to learn to love yourself. And so she gradually learned. The remaining 3 years of college passed peacefully. We each focused on our own lives. We chatted normally during the day, and during our free time, we would take walks around the track, watching the evening sun set in the sky, feeling the breeze, walking at a leisurely pace. We talked about the past and discussed our future. Until the day of graduation, when she beat me to it and publicly confessed her love to me at the ceremony. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Standing on stage, she held a sunflower, symbolizing loyalty and quiet strength. Her gaze was intense, full of deep affection. "Oscar," she called softly, repeating the same question from before, So do you still like me? I looked at her face and smiled brightly. This time, I answered her with certainty. As the words left my mouth, the sun rose from behind the clouds, bathing everything in light. The sunflower in her hands glowed with warmth and brilliance, just like her. And from that moment, we embarked on a new future, together.